That's how we own it.
What's up, family? It's your girl, Tamika D, Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the General.
And we are your hosts of Street Politicians, the place where the streets and politics meet. Well, Mr. Lennon, it's a new week.
How you feeling, Tamika?
I'm feeling good, feeling good. You people can't see me today, but you can surely hear me.
As always.
Shut up. What is that supposed to mean? You can't see me, but you can hear me. Like, what exactly would make you say, as always?
I'm just trying to say that you have a very loud, you project yourself.
Oh, okay. So basically, I got a big mouth. That's cool.
I mean, you said that, not me. I said you project.
Yeah, whatever. You said I got a big mouth. Let's see what's going on in the world. Let me tell you something. You know, something happened the other day, and it really got me to understanding how much our privacy is being invaded in this society, and just how careful people have to be. Because when returning to New York from Portia's wedding, I found this it was like a lot of traffic. If you ever been to the Atlanta airport, especially the Delta terminal, you know how crazy it is to be able, whenever there's traffic, especially after a holiday week, people, it's very difficult to get on the ramp for departures. And so a lot of times, some of the drivers will go downstairs, and then, you kind of go through and go upstairs through the escalators and what have you. It's a little trick. But just so happens that there's a new TSA pre-check express area. So it's like an exclusive room that if you have TSA pre-check, you go there and you can, go quick through the process, and they check your bag downstairs. It's really got, it has to be fairly new, because shoot, we go to Atlanta all the time. No one has ever even mentioned this space to me. But the crazy thing is that when you go inside of the room, you walk up to some machines, and at least with like the clear machines, you got to like get your face and your eyes right in front of the thing. And it tells you that they can't find you several times because you need your eyes to be correctly like in the square, in the box. But this thing, it's a big old camera somehow, and it just scans your face and all your information pops up. And you check your bag right there. You don't got to do nothing. You don't got to scan eyes. You don't have to do anything. All you just do is walk in, you stand there, and it scans your face. It captures you just standing there, and all your information comes up. And I'm like, that's got to be the same type of technology, facial recognition, that is really becoming a thing all over the world, but certainly even in the US, it's becoming a thing like on American streets. It's you can't do anything with these people where they don't see you.
And I've been saying that for a long time, and that just proves my point. And when you telling me, I'm like, people going to jail, man. Like, I don't know what people think is going on in these streets. I don't know I tell people all the time, crime is over. If you think you're gonna commit a crime, especially in New York City, in America, period, you're not getting away with it. They got temperature scans, they got facial recognition scans, they got retina scans, they got compute. Now they sending out robots that can shoot. Like we just in a time where you have to be very savvy, very intelligent. You have to have a lot of discernment, and you got to make very wise decisions. You got to watch every move you make, because they're watching every move you make. So I don't know, man. That's a very scary thing, that you just walk in to a place and you ain't got to position your face no way or anything. And from any angle, this machine is able to capture you and bring up your whole history. That's crazy.
That is, and I think I'm not explaining it properly, because it's like, okay, so, it recognizes your face, but it's not, you don't even have to like,
it's from any angle. You walk in and the shit just immediately scanned and realizes you from the side. You wasn't inside the camera. You didn't have to look. You didn't have to be stationary. You were just merely moving, and this shit is caught. And even the picture where they showed it, it was like sideways.
That's crazy though. Like I'm blown away by it. I mean, I just seeing that, I was like, wow, like our privacy is really being invaded. And but the crazy thing is like they got all this technology and can't find none of the people that kill people or not none of them, because some people have been apprehended, but a lot of times that's happening because the community is doing its own police work by telling what they think is what happened to an individual or some reason.
A lot of this shit is state sanctioned. I tell you all the time, a lot of it is state sanctioned violence, and people are getting away because they want them to get away.
Yeah, and all of the missing people and the people who've been sex trafficked, they don't have no information on none of that. But I tell you what they do know is how to keep your information and your and basically be able to keep you on record for whatever the American government's pleasure may be. It's just very strange. But anyways, and
Extremely
the
strange.
bottom line is, as you said, crime does not pay. And speaking of crime and how it doesn't pay, it's such a conflicting issue, because on one hand it's like, hey, we are out here telling people crime doesn't pay, but we also have to recognize the realities of how the moment that we're in, especially when it comes to the holiday season, creates desperation. And so now I saw that DoorDash has laid off 1,250 employees, and then all types of other companies from Amazon. We know Meta has laid off a bunch of people. They've been talking about laying off like a lot of people. Twitter, we see all the crazy stuff that's going on with Twitter, people walking out, people being laid off. Then you have HP, which I think that HP is Hewlett Packard still, but they may be rebranded to just HP, Lyft. So these are all companies that have laid off individuals. And, again, especially during the holiday time. And I'm just trying to figure out, so many of these corporations were able to get the PPP and the bailouts and everything during COVID and during the pandemic. How is it that you do all that and still lay off the employees, and then the folk ain't got no job, and then we over here telling them crime don't pay?
It ain't gonna work. You know what I'm saying? Because crime, obviously the job don't pay either. So that's how people say, man, the job ain't paying because the job is cutting us off. So we ain't getting paid. So only job we got is crime. So we got to figure this out. This economy, just the way that things are going. And it brings me to something. I was looking at it's this lawyer that I watch. He does like little hip hop law. He always explains like little things. I forgot his name, but he was talking about Nike and Adidas and how they're cutting off 30%. They're stopping their distribution by 30%. And he was talking about how China and Russia ain't buying none of their products no more, and it's actually going down. So that feeds to my boycott Nike. You know what I'm saying? People are, oh, Nike going, no, they need us now more than ever. So that's what I'm trying to say. If we consistent about what we do with our money and consistent about making people respect us, then the leverage that we can have, then we start, and if we start just focusing on Black-owned organizations and companies and brands anyway, then we can empower and we can employ our own people. You understand what I'm saying? During these seasons, if we own businesses, if we own corporations, we can make sure that, because most of the marginalized and people who are going to suffer in these times being cut off are people from our communities. So we should be able to employ our own people instead of, letting these brands do and say and treat us any way they want to. So I hope that's like a lesson to some of y'all, man. Don't be scared. Fight sometime, damn it.
Don't be scared. Fight sometime.
You have to fight.
Fight. But fight with accurate information. I tell you, in my thought of the day, we've been talking a lot lately. I said last week on the show, and it actually was one of the first clips that was put out, about our show from last week. Shout out to our brother Tabidi, who is one of the senior
Petey.
strategists
My God, we gotta
for,
call it Petey. Petey got that. Petey got
yeah,
that.
he one of the senior strategists for Steve Harvey. And, you know, we were talking about how dangerous the internet is. And an example of that happened like right after the interview. It's been going on for the last few days. You know, first of all, at the point that we're taping this, this information is up to date. But by the time the show airs, it's very possible that things have changed, and we'll make sure to report on it at that time. However, I watched a blog put out some information about Shanquella Robinson, an update to the situation with her and getting justice for Shanquella. And they said that the first thing that went out, which was verified and true, that there was a arrest warrant now active for one of the individuals involved in the direct attack. Now, we all assume that it is the woman Dejanay. However, we don't know that because that's not what the FBI stated. They did not put that information out. And they also did not tell the Robinson family, or at least I spoke to Shanquella's mother and sister about this, and they did not hear directly from the FBI who the arrest warrant is for. But they did receive information that there was an arrest warrant, and also the extradition process was attached to the warrant. But then I saw a blog post that she was arrested, and her family has not heard that. At this point, her family has not heard from the FBI. Now, it could be two problems. One, I think the internet, they want clicks and likes so much that there are some people, I used to say, well, it's not intentional. It might have been a mistake. And now I'm starting to think, nah, it's actually very intentional. There are people who report things that's untrue on purpose so that they could draw folks to their pages and get more followers. So one, I'm not about to give them, because you didn't verify. You can't verify it. I got a call from one of the major blogs asking me, hey, I want to report on this story, but I'm looking up the woman's name in the system. I'm trying to find her. We're doing the checks and balances that we have, and there's no one, literally, and also the FBI calls to them. No one is confirming that this person has been arrested, which would align with the fact that the FBI never called her mom to tell her that the person has been arrested. So that tells me that people just put anything on the internet, and that includes me. It certainly includes you, because, I'm always beating up on you. But we have to be real careful about information we share, that we see, even when we see it on someone's page that we actually, that we know and trust. Because this morning, it was on the Ricky Smiley show. They put out that the young lady was arrested, and that's actually not true.
Yeah,
that we know of.
I think what happens is a lot of people, and we all guilty of it, right? When you find something that supports a narrative that you want, or something that feeds into an energy that you actually want to believe, you want something to support your own theory, right? Your own ideology, your own feeling. Like, people want this girl to be arrested. So soon as anywhere that gets posted, people gonna be like, yes, because they want that. That's actually what they want. Even when you see, and I tell people that all the time, when you quit to post something negative about somebody, that's because you just want to believe that, because you didn't do any research, you didn't search, because it's easy to dispel myths, right? So I think that's what happens. A lot of us post things to support our own feelings, our own emotions, our own theories, and sometimes we don't check them because we already in our mind believe it's true anyway. So we just feel like somebody's just confirming what we already know. In all actuality, especially when you have huge platforms and you have people who follow you for information and they believe that the information you give is accurate, you have to do the due diligence. You have to do the research, because I see you. As soon as you seen that post, you wanted to post it, but then you was like, well, I ain't see this nowhere else. Let me start looking around. Let me make some call. Let me call, you know what I'm saying? Because you understand that you have a responsibility. You understand that people actually believe what you say. So if you want to remain credible, you know what I'm saying, you have to do the work to remain credible. So all these sites, man, you ain't got to rush to be first. Sometimes if you last and you got it right, that makes
And you
more
get the
sense than you.
story right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like getting the story right is so helpful. And the families and other people will come to you with exclusive information when they see that you have integrity in terms of what you posted. And I got into it on a blog, and it's the same blog. Well, I don't think so. In fact, it was and I don't know why I'm even calling these pages blogs, because we need to get that straight too. Blogs, some blogs, many blogs are actually reputable sources that do try their best to, look into the stories and put out accurate information. So when I say blogs, I need to be very, very careful with that. Some of them is just pages, just a Instagram page where somebody is talking, running their mouth
That's what
about.
they call a blog now. Mostly, I'm telling you, these people have give themselves names and titles, and all they do is got a YouTube page that anybody could get, or Instagram page, and they call it a blog, and then they get enough people to follow and believe it. That's what it's turned into. There's no fact check, there's no credibility, there's no resume. People don't even know who you are, but they followed you and you said a couple of words that resonated with them once or twice, and now you become their source of information. So
Well, yeah, and so on this particular thing, they were running the narrative that Dejanay, which is believed to be the woman who was attacking Shanquella, that she is a trans woman. So that narrative started somewhere. And as soon as I saw it, because I wanted to be, you know, I wanted to make sure that if it's true, and it's true, it's true. It is what it is. It's being stated. Just nothing anyone can do about it, because if it's true, it's true. But if it is not true, we do not need to, increase, or let me not say increase, but exploit a narrative that can be dangerous for anybody. So, for instance, it's not good for someone to say, "Oh, there was a robbery downtown." And I bet you it was Black people that did it, right? Or a Black man that did it. We don't want to do that, because we know what those types of narratives, what it does to our community, what it does to any particular community. I don't even want to say, oh, I bet you a white man, did XYZ thing. We all have those biases that exist within us, but we have to be really careful about that. So when people start saying, oh, well, it was a trans person, I'm like, let me call and check and, make and find out about this. And of course, I called and spoke to Shanquilla's sister, Shanquella. I want to call her Shanquilla so bad because her sister's name is Quilla. It's Aquila. So I called her and I'm asking her, hey, this is what I've heard. Can you confirm? Do you know? And she said, I don't believe that that's true. She said, we saw it online as well, but they actually met the woman, and they know several friends and people around, and they said that they don't believe that that is true. So I got tagged on a video where someone is like, oh, Tamika Mallory is not going to say anything about this. I bet you she's too scared to speak on this issue. And I'm like, what are you like? I don't even understand what that means and why people are so ignorant. So and they'd love to go back and forth with me and tell me, all the reasons why I'm wrong. So I asked, hey, this person, because this is a person commenting on a page, which they probably call themselves a blog. I asked, do you know that this person that posted this, do you know them? And do you know for sure that they are in touch with Dejanay or someone connected to her that has confirmed this information? How do they know? Did they get it from the internet? Have you questioned them about why they're posting this type of information? And I said, and why would you think that as a person who has I'm trying my best to have an authentic brand and authentic voice, although I'm not perfect, but I try. If I put out inaccurate information, like what does that say about me that I wouldn't even go? I'm going to target a community that's already dealing with a whole, a lot of things and being marginalized. And I'm going to go target that community because the internet says something and not because I know for sure that this information that's being put out there is true. Why would I do that? And you know what? Crickets. I've heard
Of course it is, because people just want to find a reason to find fault, right? People say, oh, you won't speak on that. We get that all the time. Oh, you're going to be quiet on this. You pick and choose. You damn right I pick and choose. I pick and choose the issues that I believe in, right? I can't fight on the issue or talk about something, first of all, that I'm either not knowledgeable of or I don't have any real energy for. Some shit doesn't, like I see it and I'm like, damn, okay, but that's not my forte. Certain things that go on in the world that even affect Black people, there's certain things that I'm not that knowledgeable of. So I don't speak on them. I might say, I think it's wrong, but when I'm adamant about something, it's because I'm learned in it. I've studied it. I understand the dynamics of it. I believe it to be more than likely 100% accurate, if not 99.9% accurate about things that I speak of. And I come from a perspective where I have some level of understanding or expertise in the field that I speak on. So those are the things that I like to speak on. So when they say you pick and choose, or I bet you won't say no, why don't you say about it? Obviously, you feel very strongly about the issue. You seem knowledgeable. You seem like you know some things. You got a lot of energy. So that's where we all do our part in this world. We do, especially in this movement. So we have different, everybody has a different entry point in the movement. You believe in these things. You are adamant about this. You want to hear those things talked about. So go talk about it. Don't come in my DMs trying to pressure me and force me and bully me into talking about shit that you want to talk about. That's why you got a page, you got a voice, you got all the right in the world to speak on the things that you want to talk about. Just like I have all the right not to speak on the things that I don't want to talk about. So if y'all understand that, then the world will be a better place, man. Go to your own page. I don't care how many followers you are. Tell them why you mad. Tell them the shit that you want to get off your chest. Tell them what people should be doing, and you build your own following. That's what I did.
Yeah, it's not, that one side of it, you said that's 100% right, is that it may not be something that we understand clearly. We may not, sometimes things miss you. You don't even know what happened. Or if you do know, you're trying to figure out the different pieces and understand it. Or maybe you don't have time to do that. But here's what I will say. Nobody is capable of getting on every issue all the time. Impossible. It's a failed strategy. You actually have to stick with the things you think you can actually impact. Even when there's other things that's aligned, you have to stick with what it is that you can impact. I think right now, the issue of Balenciaga, that's a big issue and a big concern. Of course, anything now that we're learning more, like I didn't know anything about the history of the designer and all of that, which I'm sure that's the case with a whole bunch of, issues and brands, and not just brands, shit we eat, places we work, the people we work for, people we've been in relationship to and with, like there's a lot with that. But I see a lot of people talking about the issue around Balenciaga. And I think that's an important issue. For me, I got one sweater, a pair of leggings, and 2 sneakers. It's not that serious. Like, I don't care. But I tell you what I do.
And that's what it is. Because it wasn't like I was never into Balenciaga. So for me to cancel Balenciaga, how am I canceling them? I don't. Yeah, I mean, well, I don't have nothing. So when I
you said you don't have nothing.
I got one Balenciaga shirt, man, one. You know what I'm saying? So it ain't.
But I bet you what you do have, and what I know I have, is hundreds. You got thousands, or I don't know, maybe you don't have thousands now, but I have hundreds of Nikes.
Yeah, so exactly. So that's why it impacted me. It really impacted me because I'm like, damn, this is something that I supported, and I know that my voice can be heard, and I know that the community that I come from, we all support it. So I know that me attempting to shift the consciousness of what's going on in Nike with the brand and with, the co-founder and how they view us, I know it's impactful. Me just coming with my one little Balenciaga shirt saying this and that, it ain't as impactful as somebody who would, like the guy Shout out to Hellcat, Omni Hellcat. He burnt this Balenciaga. People was mad at him, and he said, I don't think it's valuable enough to give to nobody. And that was my position. I don't want to see nobody with Nikes on. So I'm not giving it to nobody. I don't care if they're home. I don't want to I can give homeless people, and I can give them other clothes. I got all types of other clothes. I've been donating. I give to the Goodwill every year. I give bags of clothes to people in need. But I don't, that's not what I wanted to do with Nike. I wanted to completely eradicate and get them out of our culture. That's my intention. Will it happen? Who knows? But I know that's my goal. I don't want to see it. I don't want to give it to another person. I don't want them wearing it and somebody else seeing it and be like, oh, I like that. I want to buy that. Where'd that come from? I know that's not what I don't want to do anything to help the advertisement or promotion of it. So everybody got a different mind state. Hopefully y'all find a way to get in the game. Yeah, and do what you can.
Speaking of people using their platforms and people getting into it, we have a guest coming on today that is no stranger to not just street politicians, but to our lives. Everybody know that we are super close to our brother, the Reverend Mark Thompson. And we said we got to bring Mark on to help us talk through some of these things that's happening, some history. That's our history. That's the historian among Until Freedom, the Until Freedom family. And of course, I can't make sure we shout out our brother, attorney Angelo Pinto, because he's the other historian. And so let's bring Reverend Mark Thompson on. Let's talk about when we say everybody has to use their platform, because not everybody's using it for the right things, in my opinion, all the time. And I think Mark can help us to sort of examine what's been happening in the media. So Mark, welcome back to Street Politicians.
I'm happy to be here. Always a pleasure to be here. And I'm thankful for all the work that you all continue to do and the way you use your platform here on Street Politicians.
So first of all, Mark, I want to get your thoughts on this whole Jerry Jones, the picture, and the whole, controversy. It's not really controversial to me because it was there. He was there. So I just want to get, how do you see it, Mark?
I think it speaks to the history and legacy of a lot of people in positions of influence and power and where they came from. That is the history of this country. It was almost impossible to avoid, and you would have had to have been an exceptional person to have not participated in that and stood up against it. And we know there are very few people who did at that time. There are very few people who stood with us at our moments of struggle. Very few white people who stood with Dr. King. And so obviously Jerry Jones is one of them. I think that there are two things. One, it requires us once again to just examine who and where we are in the context of everything. Here's someone who owns a team and owns everything about the team, including the majority of athletes that are on that team. All right. And, the issue still becomes, why are we 70% of the players on these NFL teams and own nothing, own no team whatsoever? So few coaches, no owners whatsoever. That says a lot. And we ought to lift that up in every opportunity we have when these types of things come up. Why is Jerry Jones still an owner and none of us are owners? Why can't we own one team? First of all. Second of all, I do want to commend LeBron, because LeBron is not an activist, but to your point, Tamika, he is using his platform now. And I want to commend him because I think it takes a lot of courage for him to take the take he took. Asking the question, well, why y'all ask me about the situation with Kyrie and not ask me about Jerry Jones? Why is everybody quiet about that? And he articulately said, when it comes to other people's struggles and oppression and discrimination, that's paramount. But when it comes to ours, it's knocked down. It's low on the totem pole. So why isn't Jerry Jones being canceled? And why, once again, do Black people get canceled when it comes to other people's oppression when we don't oppress anybody? I'll be very, very clear about it. We don't have the power to oppress anybody. Even if people say things that may seem insensitive, or if anything, sometimes people say things that are terribly uninformed. But that's not oppression. That's not keeping a whole nother group of people down. We are kept down always, all times, and continue to be kept down. Remember, Jerry Jones was one of the people who was against the taking of the knee and all of that. He came out against that first and foremost. So, you know, for that to just kind of be, oh, okay, this is just something that happened. It's just kind of matter of fact when it comes to our struggle and our oppression. And that happened right here in this country, within these borders, on this soil, what? Not even 60 years ago.
Well, you know, I know we want to talk about Stephen A. Smith's comments because he used, you know, his platform as well. And, you know, I have my days with Stephen A. Smith. And, you know, I used to really, really think that I just used to feel different about him. And then over the years, I began to watch him make statements that I feel like he apologizes for white folks to me too much. And then sometimes, you know, he's extremely harsh on Black folks, which I get the fact that we have to challenge our own. You can't be a commentator where you don't ever have something to say about things that Black folks do that ain't right, just like any other community. However, it just feels to me like, you know, I don't know why we need to either apologize and or let's say apologists might be going too far, but why do we have to defend older white men above 70 years old who happen to be standing in a place that represents the torture of our communities? I believe, Mark Thompson, that if there was a picture of you, me, and Mysonne, any one of us, standing in a space where any other community, whether it be the Jewish community, the gay community, any other community, if we were standing there while torture that is aligned with our enslavement and oppression, if that was happening, or with that group's enslavement and oppression, if that happened, I don't think we would ever be able to live it down. I mean, that's my opinion. What do you think?
You're absolutely right. And we've seen examples of that. I mean, if we're anywhere in proximity to a situation where someone else is being mistreated or oppressed, we are held accountable for it. As far as Stephen A. Smith is concerned, I know Stephen, in spite of some of his statements, Stephen has always gone out of his way to express a profound amount of respect for me. But I take that to mean this: Stephen knows where he is. And I think Stephen realizes the cost of him speaking the way we speak. And I think he just chooses not to do it.
But that's right there is my issue, Mark, because you could choose not to do it, but you can't choose not to do it and then attack young Black kids all day long. That's the issue for me. I'm good that you're not going to speak against the white people. Good, you got to keep your job, because he's made statements that every day, this was he said, every day I wake up and figure out how to make my boss more money. That's his mind state. That's what he said. That came out of his mouth. So I get that. That's your job. But everybody don't have that same job, right? A lot of these young Black kids, you know, they come into this league. They come from marginalized communities. They don't come, you know, they come from communities. They come from poverty, but they're still grounded in their Black history, and they're trying to figure certain things out. They're still Black and proud. And because they come into an industry and that doesn't celebrate being Black and proud, they hit from all angles all the time. Every time they do something that shows that they're too Black. So we don't need our own Black people to lash out at them at the same time. You know, we know that sometimes you can't say all the time what's going on. Like we understand that, but we just don't need you to pile on. If you can't help us, just don't hurt us, man. That's my problem. My problem.
No, I agree. I agree with all of that. This media industry, though, is contracting so much. Everybody's afraid. That's why so many of those people piled on against Kyrie. They were trying to keep that, even when it wasn't necessary. Oh yeah, massa, I'm not for that. That's what people do. The difference between those and the three of us and many who are listening right now is that we're free. And freedom is a beautiful thing. And we're willing to pay whatever price there is to pay to be free. And I think people know it, even young people you're talking about. Well, you can't fool young people. And you're right, Tamika, your evolution in terms of how you look at Stephen is the same for a lot of people. You know, oh, Stephen, I like Stephen. But then as you hear more, like, wait a minute now, you know, brother, we need you because you are using this platform. We need you to take a stand. We need you to do something. But he'll do things like, for example, this week, well, in reaction to LeBron's statements on Jerry Jones, he had Roland on his show. Right? So, and he talked about, oh, I'm so glad Roland is here. And I saw what that was. Stephen doesn't feel like he can say certain things. So he brings Roland on, and that's fine. But still, I think at the end of the day, you know, we all want to look in the mirror. I think the three of us, we have a different calling. We face each other in the mirror every day, don't we? When we in the morning, Mice, you look in the mirror and you got to live with Mice. Tamika, you got to live with Tamika. I got to live with Mark. Right. We can't live with ourselves if we're not looking at the people in the mirror who we are. That's just how we made.
Yeah.
And that's a blessing.
And I think, Mark, for me, my son gave one aspect, like if you go, you know, if you're not going to say or be as radical, if you will, as we are on race and those issues, but you can take the time to attack and critique. Let's say critique, because the word attack, it you know, that triggers people. So let's say critique. If you can do that, then you at least can just be quiet about Jerry Jones. You understand what I'm saying? Nobody's even looking for Stephen A. Smith to, we wanted, let me tell you, the Jerry Jones situation was 14 years ago. We're not stupid. We get it. It was
no, it was when he was 14.
No, right. Excuse me. I'm sorry. It was when he was 14 years old. We all, when we were 14, have things in our back. I mean, I know I never stood anywhere and watched, you know, the torture of another community, but nonetheless, we all, when we were 14, had things that we're not proud of. We can all reconcile that. Absolutely, right? The issue is that I don't need to go running around trying to explain on behalf of a white man who happened. He should be the only one explaining. The only person we need to hear from is Jerry Jones about why he was there and his denouncing racism and supporting the players that are on his team and in the NFL, whose life experience is that of which happened to those Black people in that picture. That's the only thing we need. We do not need to hear from one Black person that feels the need to explain on Jerry Jones' behalf. We don't need that.
Because they wasn't there. You wasn't 14. You wasn't there 66 years. You don't know nothing about it. Don't tell us about something that you don't have any information to give us. You're giving us your opinion that's based off a biased situation, because the only proximity you able to see Jerry in is the proximity that he wants you to see him in.
Right, you right. Exactly.
You never, especially as a Black man, you never been in the room with him and a bunch of white racist people to hear him defend no Black people. You don't know none of these things. So you can't even give us a good point of view that contributes to this situation in general. We asking you how he is when you go to the games. Of course he gonna be. That's what the people make him, or 70% of the players on the team. What he gonna do there? He ain't gonna say, yo, I'm racist. I don't give a fuck about that. That's never gonna be. So you don't have a perspective that can help us to dissect this situation. So just be quiet.
And before you go, Mark, because I want you to have the last word on this issue. I think, my son, what you just said is 100% true. You don't know. You might know him, but none of us know people behind closed doors when they are in their element, right? And let me tell you, there was someone tweeted, and you know, I dare open Twitter ever in my life, but it just so happened that I was tagged to something and I opened it. And it was a picture of teenagers standing around watching an actual lynching. And the title of it said, these were 14-year-olds too, right? So 14-year-olds at that time stood around and watched a lot of things. The only question a Black man could, to me, or a Black person should be asking is, what has Jerry Jones done from then until now to prove his allegiance to the Black community outside of people being employees that have helped to make him rich? What has he done? That's the only thing I think. So that's my issue with Stephen A. Smith. I'm not looking for him to be a radical activist. I don't need him to be Mark Thompson. I don't need him to be Dr. King. I just need to know, why is it that you feel so comfortable trying to explain for a community that they need to be the only ones explaining for themselves?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. And I think we should not discount the possibility that he may have been asked or ordered to do that. One, and we got to look at that. When people want to step in the line of fire, put their bodies in between the white folks we would hold accountable. The other thing too, let me just tell you how real it is about him possibly being asked to do that. Even if he wasn't asked, he heard it in his head. If people have noticed this in the past decade, at least, sports coverage has changed. And because of the contracting sports journalism and media industry, there used to be a time when we were younger, when sports media personalities and sports coverage was more critical of owners, teams. Even if a team wasn't doing well, you heard sports commentators put that out there. In a contracting industry where teams and leagues own their own media, everybody wants to be sure they keep a job. So nobody wants to criticize anybody. So you look at Stephen A. Smith, how often does he'll criticize a Black athlete before he'll criticize a team or an owner. And he's not alone in that, because if ESPN goes south on him, he needs to be able to get a job on the New Jersey Nets network, which is here in New York, or get a job with the NFL television network. You follow what I'm saying? So that is another practical reality when it comes to some of these people. So you're right, we shouldn't even be looking to sports media folk any longer to set a precedent or stick their necks out for us, because they're not doing it any longer in terms of objective critique when it comes to these teams. A matter of fact, I'll say this and I'll be done. The only commentator who was always consistent about mice criticizing the NFL's lack of guaranteed contracts was one person. That was Brian Gumbel. If you notice, no other sports, Stephen A. Smith, they don't say none of that stuff because they want to be sure they still have a job. And so, yes, Jerry Jones, he's going to defend him. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he was asked to. Last thing, I said his last name, but I'll say this too. Y'all never see me in no cowboy hat. You will never see me in a cowboy hat. That itself is a symbol of oppression in this country, because that cowboy hat symbolizes the Trail of Tears, the assault on our indigenous people, and the assault on our people. So that to me is a cultural symbol. It's not something Black folks should be wearing on their head. So when I saw Stephen wear that cowboy hat, I said right then, you know what? The brother he's in a place I'm not in.
I want to ask a question about, so we were watching the movie Till, right? Which is very, very emotional movie, Mark. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have.
Very emotional movie.
It's heart-wrenching. It's graphic.
It's really graphic and emotional. And I was wondering, we talk about this and not to any way make light of the situation or say anyone isn't guilty of anything, or they are, whatever. But the reality of the situation is, we were looking, and the woman who lied on Emmett Till, right? I was told that she's still alive now, and no one has pressed charges on her, knowing that she lied, knowing that she perjured herself, knowing that she got she pretty much aided and abetted in the murder of this young 14-year-old kid. And there we go, 14, back to that age again. This is what happens to our 14-year-olds, and they were like, she's too old to stand trial, and she's too old to be arrested, so nobody pursued it. And I bring up Bill Cosby. Now, I don't know the situation, but he was found guilty of what happened to those women. I'm not speaking on that. I'm speaking on the fact that these cases were 40-something years old. This was an 80, almost 90-year-old man who had ailments, who was very, very sick, could barely see, all of these things. And nobody cared about his health when they were prosecuting, right? So I want to understand why do you think there's this double standard, or why do you think people care about her age but didn't care about his age?
And I want to just jump in before you say that and just reiterate, because, you know, there are people who will really try to take that statement out of context and make it that we are saying that Bill Cosby should not have been arrested. And that has absolutely nothing to do with the statement that what we're talking about. What we're saying is looking at age, just simply age, right? And accountability. Bill Cosby has been held accountable for the claims of these women against him at his age. What we're saying is, why is it that this woman has not been held accountable for Emmett Till the same way? That's it. That's a simple question, so that anybody who's listening, don't come to us talking about, oh, we don't think Bill Cosby should have went to jail. Bill Cosby has been held accountable for the women who have made claims against him. And we want to know, why is that not the same for what happened to Miss Bryant?
There's no logical explanation for that. But let me, if you don't mind, let me take it a step further for those who would accuse us of defending Cosby. Cosby is like Kanye. Because remember, as we've articulated, folks got mad about what Kanye said that was anti-Semitic, but we were done with Kanye when he said slavery was a choice and when he put on the White Lives Matter shirt. Everybody else was quiet about that. Same thing was Bill. Before Bill was exposed by the Me Too movement, we were done with him on the pound cake speech, right? So we don't have to wait for other people to raise their concerns before we hold our own folk accountable. And what he said in that speech, I was there, Dick Gregory was there. We were done with him then, when he talked about all the negative things about Black people and the pants hanging and all the disparaging comments we made. So folks, you know, we didn't have to wait on the Me Too story to be done with Bill. Some of y'all were late to the party on that. Yes, he's been held accountable. There is no logical explanation as to why Carolyn Bryant Dunham has not been held accountable for her actions in probably the most heinous lynching, because it was so well publicized, because it was so graphic. And people, you know, some people say, well, I don't want to go see any more of these movies. No, you need to go see this movie, because that's what Mamie Till wanted. She wanted people to see the remains of her son. If people had not seen his mutilated remains, August 28, 1955, Emmett Till was lynched. We're in the month of December now, this year. August 28, 1955. Montgomery bus boycott was December 1st, 1955. Emmett Till's death and his brutalization is what sparked the modern civil rights movement. And people decided right then and there, we're not going to allow this anymore. Black women walked to work, wore holes in the soles of their shoes, walking to work in Montgomery for a year. I don't know if we could do that today, right now, have that discipline to boycott and walk to work every day for a whole year until there was desegregation on the buses in Montgomery. No, she does need to be held accountable. And to be even more specific about it, there was some evidence recently uncovered that there was a warrant for her arrest, and the warrant was never executed. So even the myth that she was never seriously considered and they never had any evidence, even back then, the white folks in Mississippi, the prosecutor in Mississippi, issued a warrant for Carolyn's arrest. That warrant needs to be executed. And I think there's a Black prosecutor down there. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy. There's a Black prosecutor down there that needs to execute it. In fact, he's in one of our, in a fraternity. I know some brothers in. We trying to reach them to get him to do it. But no, there is no excuse. And some people saying, well, she's old. So what? She should still be held accountable, even if she don't go to prison. All right, you don't want to put in prison? Charge her, arrest her, execute that warrant from 1955, hold her accountable. She said to a journalist a few years ago that Emmett didn't do anything. She's pretty much admitted to identifying him. She is an accomplice in his death. Yes, absolutely. This is something, you know, reparations isn't just about money or about land. It's also about healing and fixing certain wrongs, healing, dealing with trauma. And there's not an experience really in this century, a singular incident that was more traumatic than the death of Emmett Till.
That's the real. Well, Mark, we would love to talk to you all day, but we got a tight ship today, man. We got a tight show, man. As usual, you bring the heat, you come with historical facts, and you speak it like nobody else could speak it but Mark.
I got it. I need to get the cupcake speech for my son because I don't think he heard it. I don't think he remembered the pound cake. Exactly.
I gotta listen to that. I ain't hear that.
No, go, you check it out. It was horrible. And he put down all the brothers locked up. He put down all the brothers for the clothes we wear. And he even made fun of our names, African names, Muslim names. He said we shouldn't be giving children African names and calling our kids Muhammad. And we were invented Howard. You know, Dick Gregory's hilarious. After he finished, because Dick was getting an award, Dick walks up to him. He said, man, don't you ever say nothing like that when I'm on stage with you. You crazy. You know, and just, again, a little bit more history, just in terms of, just give a little tidbit. Bill was put on by Dick. Dick left the stage, left the nightclub scene, the comedy stage to join Dr. King. But he still had all these dates, all right, that he had to work. He gave those to Bill and put Bill on. There was an incident in the Playboy Club in the 60s, Playboy Mansion. Everybody went there and party. There was a pair of white comedians. They had their own show. Some will remember this, some who are old enough. The Smothers Brothers. They were speaking out against the Vietnam War. Dick was speaking out against the Vietnam War. Rowan and Martin was another popular show. All these shows were speaking out against the Vietnam War. The only comedian who wasn't was Bill Cosby. They confronted him at the Playboy Mansion. Said, man, the movement put you on, Bill. You wouldn't be on if it weren't for Dick Gregory and the movement. When you gonna speak out against some of these injustices? And Bill said, I'm not gonna do that. So I'm saying, that's Bill. That's been his history. And Bill needs to be held accountable for all of that, as well as the Me Too. But I'm saying we were done with Bill already. The Cosby Show was great. It was cute. But at the end of the day, where do you stand on our issues? And Bill just wasn't there.
Well, Mark, you got to come back because we're going to talk, because the Cosby Show was my whole life. So it wasn't cute. It was very, very critical. And we're going to talk about all the shows. I think we should do that one day, just kick it about the shows and what those shows, how they all impacted us from good times, and, you know, just take it back and think through, you know, some of the good old days. And we should do it in person. We love you, Reverend Mark Thompson. Thank you.
I love you all too.
Peace, King.
Peace, peace.
As usual, man, the good Reverend Dr. Mark Thompson, as we call him, always dropping jewels. And there's a lot to unpack, man. You know, just listening to him, like he pretty much agrees with us. There's no reason why this woman shouldn't have been charged and shouldn't still be charged. You know, I never knew that they actually issued a warrant. That's crazy. But, you know, every time you talk to Mark, he's going to give you some history that you don't even know about, man. So always appreciate him.
No, really. I mean, I agree with you. Well, I did know about the warrant and how it was never executed. And I think that what we learned from, you know, and also just listening to Mark give you more, whether you agree with, you know, his position and many different people's position on Bill Cosby or not. You know, one thing you do have to recognize is that there's a history of, you know, when people violate the Black community, it's like, it just kind of like goes to the wayside. It's not important. But then, of course, when they do things that's egregious to another community, then the world expects us to jump on it and, you know, be a part of the crusade to destroy them. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with holding people accountable, but I do know that the hypocrisy is what makes folks they find themselves even defending things that they know is wrong, because they get to, it's like the Kanye piece, like when he was saying all the disrespectful things against Black people and saying anti-Black things, because of the fact that no one, it wasn't a big media story, you know, there was no companies canceling him. People made all types of excuses about why, well, you know, we can't really say for sure that it's anti-Black. But then, of course, when another community is harmed by the things that he said, then it's like, okay, well, everybody should get behind tearing, you know, him to shreds. And I think accountability just has to be more across the board. We have to be accountable in every single corner, because once we do that, then people will feel comfortable saying right is right and wrong is wrong.
That's a fact. And you know what? And that brings me to my I don't get it. We was talking about Jerry Jones, and Mark brought up, LeBron's position. And what I don't get, right, is because I'm critical of you. When you do wrong shit, I'm gonna call you out. But when you do right shit, I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna also say, yo, you did something right, right? And a lot of us take time. We make mistakes. We fall off a little bit. We don't see clearly on certain things. And so many people are mad, like, oh, now LeBron trying to get back in our good graces. LeBron has said a lot of things that I agree with. He stood up on a lot of different, issues in that regard Black people. He's used his platform a bunch of times. And then there's times that I didn't think he was as strong. That happens all the time. None of us are perfect. But I don't get this narrative and this position that people take that you too late to do the right thing, or you too late to speak up now. Don't speak up now. Like, isn't our job, isn't this what we say, that our Black influencers and people who have platforms and who have levels of celebrity, that we want them to speak on our behalf? So some of them are not, they catch up a little slower. Some of them don't understand certain things. Isn't it our job, as a community, to want to see them progress, to want to see them be on the right side and say the right things? So I think I don't get why we want to discourage those same people from speaking up, because it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. When you see the person doing the right thing and they saying the right things and they standing on the right side of history and they're representing this culture properly, then salute them. The same way you want to tear them down when they don't do it, the same way when he said what he said about Kyrie, everybody was, oh, LeBron this and that. He took a time to reflect. He reflected, he thought about it. He said, damn, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe this wasn't the right, even though
I don't know if he said maybe I shouldn't have said that. I think
I don't know. This is why I'm saying maybe. I said maybe he said, I don't know what he thought. But I know that when he sat down and he made this statement, it looked like reflection. Because he even brought, when Kyrie said, look what happens, he said, I know who I am. And I need y'all to keep the same energy when we talk about things that happen with our people. He sat there and he thought about what that meant. He probably, at that point, he probably didn't understand exactly what was going on. But when you sat back and you listened, he probably had a conversation. I don't know what it was, but I know that at this point, he was very strong in letting you know that Black people have been wronged, and is not taken with the same level of vigor and energy that y'all give to everybody else's atrocities and things that happen. He said, this is one of the major things that happen to Black people. When those 7 kids were denied to go into that school, those are historical things that scarred the Black culture and community forever. And we have to deal with those things. And they shouldn't just be glossed over, because when we do something that you don't like, you're not going to gloss over it. So for me, I just don't get why we as a people don't understand that we have to give our own people grace. None of us are perfect. None of us are going to get it right every time. But when you see somebody who has those platforms and can lose and it's going to deal with certain backlash because they stand on, certain principles, we got to fuel that. You know what I'm saying? We got to lift them up. We got to celebrate that the same way we tear down when they don't do it.
Well, I agree with you 100%, but I just want to make it clear, because I don't want us to romanticize stories in order for it to be more convenient. It may just be simply that he still agrees with his initial point, that he thinks sharing a video without context was wrong for Kyrie. And as he reflected on what upset people so much in that moment, he knows that racism and hypocrisy exists, and that Black folks are always on the short end of the stick, right? It doesn't mean that you can't sit here and say, I could sit here and say about my child, you did this and I'm pissed off about it. Look at me yesterday. Yesterday, I told him off about 3 different things. I gave him 3 points and really gave him a piece of my mind. And you know how I give a piece of my mind. But then I still turned around and came in and made him some dinner and helped him do some of the things he needed to do. Right. So we can do those two things at the same time. And I think that on this last point is what we're dealing with here is humans, right? Humans that for the most part try to get it right. LeBron tries to get it right for the most part. Nobody is 100% perfect. Sometimes our ideas and our thoughts, it's not even just, oh, maybe he thought he rethought it. He just might not agree with us, and we don't have the same opinion on some things sometimes. That's life. Sometimes
I don't think that's what I was saying though, Tamika.
No, I'm not saying you are. I read the comments. I'm sorry. So I read the comments. I saw people in the comments, not on your page, but all over, saying things like, oh, now he want to change his opinion. Now he want to say things to get back in the good graces. I don't know if I think it's getting back in the good graces. I think he just is a man that said what he felt then, and he's saying what he feels now. He can say, you and I can have a difference of opinion on point A and still know that hypocrisy and racism leans on Black people the most, and that even though what Kyrie posted is not something that LeBron stands behind, even Kyrie said there's things in the film that he doesn't agree with. So we already have made that clear, but we can still acknowledge that Jerry Jones, and let me just add, Brett Favre and a bunch of other white people have wronged the Black community, and they have not been held to the same standards as someone who posted a movie and didn't make the movie and doesn't sell the movie, but the people who sell it, who are also white people, have not been canceled in the same way as what Kyrie experienced.
Well, once again, I'm gonna give a little pushback because I don't think any of us, for the most part, there are people who are saying, that he shouldn't have felt the way. I think for me, my whole issue with LeBron wasn't how you felt, because you could have felt there. A lot of people felt like, damn, I don't think he should have posted that or this and that, but you weren't supposed to say that on TV. That wasn't supposed to be a conversation that you had, because prior to Jerry Jones, prior to Brett Favre, this America has had a history of lynching the Black man or prosecuting the Black man or publicizing everything. So it didn't just happen. He knows that. He knows that whenever a Black athlete or Black person does something, we're going to be criticized way more than everybody else. That didn't just happen. So I think when he realized, damn, I utilized my voice to pile on to another Black man, and no other white man is going to do that. That's never going to happen. It hasn't happened in history. So I think my personal thing is he reflected and said, damn, that I was wrong for that. I wasn't wrong for how I feel. My opinion of it really doesn't change, but I didn't have to utilize my voice. There's a bunch of people that didn't utilize their voice. There are all hundreds of athletes that refused to make any commentary on Kyrie. And I think what he did wrong was, if that was your opinion, you should have kept that opinion to yourself.
Okay, well, let's make sure we put this at the top of our next show, because I still have pushback, and I won't even give it today. But what I will say is that LeBron is a leader, and that goes in a lot of directions. And when, he's asked to speak on certain issues, I'm not saying that he has to speak on it, but as a leader, he can't just be like every other person that doesn't have anything to say. However, how you say what you say is very, very important. And I think that the way several people spoke about Kyrie, in the ways in which, in the ways in which they spoke about him, I think that it should have been done differently. Let's just put it that way. So let's talk about it again at the top of another show. And I think that's it for today.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. First of all, I'm gonna shout out Bungee brand, Black owned. This is the hoodie. I got my Black Effect hat. Finally got my Black Effect hat. Shout out to Black Effect. Sit down with the stand-ups as we drop an episode. It's gonna be a small little clip in here so that y'all can look forward. It's me interviewing my man G-Dep. If you don't know who G-Dep is, he was signed to Bad Boy in the late 90s. He went to prison for a murder that he committed 12 years prior to going to prison. He actually turned himself in because his conscience hurt. Nobody was looking for him, no warrant. Nobody even knew he did it. And now he's up for the lawyer who prosecuted him is trying to get him clemency. And the judge and the lawyer saying that they think he should be granted clemency after being in jail for 12 years. So I want y'all to listen to this compelling interview. Shout out to G-Dep. Sit down with the stand-ups. Coming soon. So yeah, but there's a lot of, it's going to be a lot. I don't know if you're comfortable with just talking about it, but it's a lot of young kids, and a lot of them aren't privy to the kind of like the story of what happened. Like I know, and the people from our era more than likely know, but just a little more of what was it that you turned yourself into? What happened? I don't need you to give me details, you know, if it's not something that you're really comfortable, but just it's kind of like explaining what happened.
Right, yeah, well, it was, before, I came up, what I'm saying, in the rap, industry, the music industry, rather, what I'm saying, I was out in the street, doing things, that I didn't really have business, that I didn't have any business doing, what I'm saying, so, things went, left. I wound up, what I'm saying, catching, committing a robbery, what I'm saying, and wound up, one of the persons that was involved, got killed, what I'm saying. So, it was one of those things where it wasn't, I didn't know he died, you know what I mean? But it was just one of those things that, just was, heavy on my heart for a while, you know what I'm saying? So, years went by, and then, I just had, I wanted to, kind of bring some closure to the whole situation, to the whole, to the family or whoever, was connected to this man. You know what I'm saying? I was connected to this man at this point. You know what I'm saying? So, I just, I investigated. I did my own investigation, and come to find out. And when I say I did my own investigation, I mean I turned myself in. You know what I'm saying? And, lo and behold, the dude, had passed away. So, again, here I am. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that, was all about.
We want to hear more about your concept of what you're doing in our next show. So let's also put that at the top.
Put a pin in it. We're going to put a pin in it. So that brings us to the end of another episode. Shout out to the great Reverend Mark Thompson and his historical views that always keep me mind-boggled, because I don't be knowing half the stuff. And that's my historian, man. Him and Angelo, I go to them and they give me all of the jewels and the history that I need. So shout out to him for being on the show. Shout out to you, Miss Mallory, even though you wasn't visual. You got this little picture here up here that we get to see. I don't know if everybody else get to see it, but it's a smiling picture of Tamika. She just there smiling. So shout out to you. And shout out to our audience, man, for making us number one, the number one podcast in the world. We got the best audience. Continue to support us. Let us know if you love us, you hate us, DM us, give us topics, give us feedbacks. Ask Street Politicians Pod. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika Mallory is not going to always be wrong, but we will both always be authentic.
Peace.
Peace.
Listen to Street Politicians on the Black Effect Network on iHeartRadio.
And catch us every single Wednesday for the video version of Street Politicians on iWomen.tv.